This video is divided into 4 chapters, and each chapter covers a different finishing technique. Please refer to my allergen advice before using any of the products in this video. You can find this on the kit list or at the tutorials page on my website. Chapter 1. Staining. Working with water-based wood dyes. In this video I'll be demonstrating with both fish designs. Here is fish design 1, ready for painting. I have drawn on a few details in pencil as a guide. You can add the same details or invent your own. Fish 2 will be all one colour, so no marking up is needed. For both fish, I am using an orange water-based wood dye. For more information on any of the products I use, see the kit list for this series. Tip: a pipette is useful for transferring the dye to a palette. Starting with fish 2, I diluted the dye a little with water. And I applied the dye evenly all over the puppet. The dye soaks into the wood very easily, so you don't need loads of it on your brush. Then I moved on to fish 1 and painted 2 orange stripes. I loaded my brush with a very minimal amount of dye to prevent the dye from bleeding as much as possible. However, this is not crucial as I can tidy it up later. Finally, I diluted the dye with a lot more water to create a much paler orange. I then painted the rest of fish 1 with a paler orange. This will act as an undercoat to the white paint in chapter 2. After staining, leave the pieces to dry overnight. Chapter 2. Painting. Working with chalk paint and acrylic paints. Here is fish 1 after the stain has dried. In this chapter I'll be using white chalk paint and black acrylic paint. First, I painted some extra details on fish 1 with the black acrylic. Then I painted over the pale orange undercoat with the white chalk paint. I built the paint up gradually, allowing the undercoat to show through in some places. Tip: if you use less paint on your brush, you can highlight the texture of the carved wood. This technique is called dry brushing. However, in some places you might want a more solid colour. You will need to paint 2 coats to create a solid white. Tip: if you want it to be solid white all over, there's no need for an undercoat. I tidied up the edges of the orange stripes with 2 coats of solid white paint. Here is Fish Design 1 after painting. Chapter 3: Sanding. Distressing with sandpaper to add texture. Here is Fish Design 2 after the stain has dried. Instead of painting, sanding can also bring out the texture of the carved wood. I used wet and dry sandpaper, 800 grit. I lightly sanded the stained surface of the fish. Focusing particularly on the scales and gills. This highlighted both the scales and the carved surface. It also lightens the colour, but this will darken again with oiling. Chapter 4: Oiling. Sealing the wood dyes with Danish oil. Finally, to prevent the orange wood dye from running, I sealed the dye into the wood with Danish oil. For this you will need a coarse brush. I used a toothbrush. Gently work the oil into the wood with circular motions. The oil should soak into the surface of the wood. Keep going until the piece is thoroughly coated in oil. Finally, soak up any excess oil with a paper towel or a cloth. Leave the piece to dry overnight. I also added a little bit of oil to the orange stripes on fish 1. This concludes video 5.